figure out how do we operate in an environment where we no longer have to go through that effort. Matthew, similarly, uncertainty resolved regarding our financial situation. And it's not again just financially.
Yeah.
It's do we have a future? What is our future?
Yeah, one of our wishes is to have a future.
Correct. That people would come to know us and God better, and that God, finally, the last one, that God remains a part of whatever we do and wherever we go as a church.
Okay. All right.
My first wish is just for more families to find us.
Yeah, others come to participate. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a synergy there that if people walk in and see a half-full congregation, they wonder, is this church viable? Is this, so
Get a smaller room.
No, but I mean, so I'd like to
Go back to the clubhouse.
see it filled.
Filled it.
Focus on children's
would.
ministry.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for all of us, because the children are a very big part of our curve.
I believe children.
And then new connections. I don't know whether that's more new connections.
Meaning new.
Being able to connect with others that I already feel a connection with certain people on the leadership team or in the Bible study group or children's education ministry, but I want to even have more connections.
So more like full participation.
But I think that has to do with having more families too. By having more families in the congregation, I'll
Detour
have.
signs up in front of the church where people would have to drive through somehow to get to where they're going. Is, oh, hey,
Come here.
yeah,
Then just charge them when they get
charge
Get
them.
directions to get out.
Yeah, or charge them for parking, however we get our money, it's however we get our money.
What surprises what strikes you as you look at all this stuff? What are the surprises here? What are the themes that kind of captured your eyes, or you think about?
I think one of the surprises to me is that we haven't talked a lot about in our leadership team about how we work together, and that relationship and working together generates energy. That one thing that you were bringing up a few times.
Yeah. Something about how this connects to this part, and that there's this piece about this is all times. Okay.
What doesn't surprise me, but is disappointing, is so much focus on finance.
Yeah, one of the parts we have to do again.
I know it is part of
It's
it,
reality.
but I think if we could focus on some of the good things, maybe that would take care of itself.
But partly, I think one of the parts to figure out though is, I'm glad you guys all. I'm not surprised I'm not surprised by the financial stuff. Okay, so we're not. So anybody surprised by the financial? Okay, so part of the outcome of this whole process has to be maybe economically viable. Maybe there's a language of reframing in there that you guys can wrestle through. Some of this stuff is going to be about wrestling, because there is a difference between self-sufficiency in a year and a half and a plan that makes us economically viable, so we know we're going to be here. So part of the way to do one of the themes to explore, and that's part of what we're going to be looking at here. I'm going to try to capture some of this. Is future themes to explore, and partly the diversity of voices helps you sharpen that, because there's a big difference there. There's a really big difference between saying, as a leadership team, we're going to go to the congregation and say that one of our goals is we will be economically self-sufficient in a year and a half. That's very different than, as a leadership team, we have discerned together, and because of all of this, whatever we get to, we've said that one of the things our goal is we want to be economically viable enough to give people confidence that they can invest their lives here. And And getting clear on those goals will help your message. It'll also help you, get clear on, eventually it'll get to strategies, but to say, because I actually think that economics are always an input more than an output, especially in a church. You don't measure a church by its bottom line financially. Economics are a means to an end. So thinking through the economics and thinking through our biases about economics are really important. And to be honest, this doesn't matter the size of the church. I mean, I have the same issue happening in my session. If I asked what are the 3 wishes of the church, I'd have some people say, paying off our debt. Paying off our debt is very, very different than we grow the giving and so that we can manage the debt. We have older folks who think the church should not ever have a mortgage. We're going to die under this debt. We have other younger folks who are like, are you kidding? A $6 million debt at your size? Maybe. As long as we can get a really good, as long as we can keep refinancing it, we're fine. So partly thinking through what the economics mean, economics is a part of it, is thinking it as an input. And really recognizing that any solutions you have going forward, any shared images for your future, and anything innovative to create that future must take into account what that represents economically. And I actually think, Greg, I'm probably saying more than I should, but I actually think thinking this through is a more helpful friend than financial self-sufficiency, or even growing our church so that we'll grow. What you have to do is you got to figure out the economics. And that's true no matter what. And that's true for the rest of your life. That's true. I could show you guys, Excel spreadsheets where I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm asking the question, to fulfill this vision that we have, which for us as a church is about more and more moving ourselves into our community and being an influence on other churches and being a generative church. What's the economic realities that we have to live with? And what's the economic realities that fund it and make it work?
Well, and I think short of a major economic benefactor showing up, we're not going to be self-sufficient for a number of years. I mean, one of my basic tenets is that just the general demographics of where we are right now, with the options that are available to people that want to be churched, require not 4,000 homes in the Ladera Ranch community, but they require development on out that entire Ortega corridor. They require La Pata to be punched through so that we can get the north side of Talega coming over, and then development can continue through that corridor. And it's going to be a matter of years before that happens, with the options that are available, before we can put 150 to 200 people in a sanctuary, wherever it happens to be, on a Sunday, which is necessary for us to be self-sufficient. So what we have to do is decide, do we shut our doors and wait for that to happen and lose what we have, which I don't think anybody wants to see, or do we figure out a way to garner the economic resources and manage the cost side of the equation to sustain ourselves until that economic development occurs?
And I think that part of what this allows you to do is to say, if one of our goals is ultimately about being economically viable, let's put this here, that we're going to be economically viable because we want to exist. Really, we want a future.
We have to understand that there's two sides to that equation.
Yeah.
There's the revenue in terms of the giving that we get, but also the cost side as well.
Yeah. And so a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about are going to have to be within the framework. I mean, eventually you're going to be talking about a shared future that probably means our economics being what they are, this is what church looks like here. Now, how do we do this? These other things that are so important to us. How do we develop? So part of the shared image of the shared future is we're economically viable, but it's not the only one. That's what we keep. And so let's put that here and let's keep going, because we're going to keep. This is going to be one of the things that has to be addressed. It just has to be addressed. It has to be addressed quite frankly by you guys. It has to be addressed by you guys.